It's okay. There's no need to be scared. It's just a negative sign. It can't hurt you. In this video, we're looking at how to factorize expressions where there is at least one negative sign. Oof. In these ones here, you might notice that the first one is negative, but the second one is positive. So only the first term is negative. If this is the case, then it can help to swap the terms around. Remember, a term includes the sign just before it, and the terms are separated by plus and minus signs. So there are two terms here, negative 10x and plus 15xy. If I flip the order, then I will have plus 15xy and then negative 10x. You might notice that I didn't actually write the plus here because it's not necessary if it's at the very start. You can leave off the plus. People will know that it's positive. It's all cool. Now, this question is like ones we've factorized before. We first look at the number part. The coefficient here is 15 and the coefficient here is 10. What's the biggest number that goes into 15 that also goes into 10? It's 5. And are there any letters in common? Yes, x. So we can take out a common factor of 5x. Now I need to write each of these terms as 5x times something. Here I've got 15xy. Let's look at the number part first. 5 times something gives 15. 5 times 3. And do I need to multiply by a letter to put a letter on the end? Yes, I'll need to multiply by y. Just check for yourself, either in your head or on paper. 5 times 3 will give me the 15. So I'll have 15 times x times y, which is exactly what I have here. So I've written the same term, just in a different way. I've taken out this factor of 5x. I'll also have to write this term, 10x, as 5x times something. Well, from 5 to 10, I'll have to multiply by 2. And I don't need to get any letters at the end or change the power of x. I just want to multiply by 2. This term, of course, is negative. I forgot to copy down this negative sign, so I'll copy it down here. Let's just check in our heads. 5 times 2 is 10 times x. Sure, 10x is 10 times x, so it's the same thing. Now we can notice that we have a common factor, the 5x. See, there's a 5x here and a 5x here, so I'm going to take out the common factor, which means writing it at the start and removing it from each of these terms. If I have this term here and I remove the 5x, the only factor that's left is 3y. And likewise, here I've got this term, 5x times 2. If I remove the 5x factor, because it's out the front now, it's common, then the only thing that's left is 2. So 3y minus 2 is what is in the brackets. You can actually check that this does give you that when you expand it out. 5x times 3y will give me 15xy. Oh, there it is. And 5x times 2 is 10x. So this is the same as this expression. They are the same. Just this one is factorized. All right, what about this one? Very similar, but this one, the x has a power. First, let's think about the number. Actually, first, let's use our tip here. If only the first term is negative, let's swap them around. I've got one term, which is negative 16x, and another term, which is positive 8x squared. Let's write the 8x squared term first, and then we'll write the negative 16x term. Now we can start to look for a common factor. The number part, what's the biggest number that goes into 8 that also goes into 16? It is 8. And x squared is here, x is here. The highest power of x that goes into both of them is x. If you're not sure about that, go back to the bit where we did highest common factor. What about this? So I know I need to write 8x squared as 8x multiplied by something. There's only one thing I need to multiply this by, to get it to x squared. Here I have x. X times something gives me x squared. X times x. 8x times x really is x squared. Good. And here I've got the minus. Where's my minus? There's my minus. To figure out this part here, remember that the common factor here was 8x, so it's going to be 8x multiplied by something. 8x multiplied by something. To get from 8 to 16, I have to multiply by 2. So that's why this is multiplied by 2. You can also check for yourself. 8x times 2 is 16x, which is what we had here. So they are the same. I've just written it. So each of these terms has an 8x factor. And the reason I wanted to write them both with that common 8x factor is so that I can take it out the front. Now I'm going to have my 8x out the front, and then in brackets I'll have some expression in here, the other factor. And it's going to be each term, but without the 8x. So if I get rid of that 8x, the only factor that's left here is x. And here, if I get rid of 8x, the only factor that's left is 2. And I copy down that minus sign. So 8x bracket x minus 2. The last one looks a little bit trickier because both terms are negative. And if both terms are negative, then it's best to take a negative common factor. So the thing at the front is going to be negative. I kind of gave away the answer there. The thing at the front, the highest common factor at the front, is going to have a negative sign in it. There are no letters in common, so it won't have any letters here. But what is the biggest number that goes into 7 and also goes into 21? It is 7. So because both terms are negative, that's why I'm putting a negative out the front here. And it's a 7 because that's the biggest number that goes into both of these terms. Now I need to write 7x as 7 times something. Well, that's just 7 times x. And 21, how can I write that as 7 times something? 21 is 7 times 3. You might notice there that the way that I thought of it is I kind of just ignored that minus sign and just said, oh, 21, how do I write that as 7 times something? And then once I figured out that answer, I put that negative sign back in. Okay, now we have a common factor. The common factor here is negative because both of these things have a negative sign. Another way of looking at it is that there's a negative 7 here and also a negative 7 here. So each of these terms is going to lose the negative 7. And we will take the negative 7 out to the front and put our brackets in. So if I write this without the negative 7, the only thing that's left is x. And if I write this term without the negative 7, the only term left is 3. These were two different terms, right? There was one term here and one term here, which came from the start. We had one term here and one term here. So all the way there were two terms. Looking at our answer, x3, these should be two different terms. This second term needs a sign, a positive or negative, to show that these are two different terms. Otherwise it's unclear. Is this x times 3, x cubed, x minus 3? Because I got rid of the minus 7, remember I took that negative 7 out the front? That means that this isn't negative anymore. This is positive. This is tricky to get your head around, so one strategy that is really useful for factorization questions is to try to go the other way and check that your answer makes sense. So what I'm about to put isn't part of the answer, but will just help us to check that we got it right. So let's go backwards. Let's try to expand the brackets. Negative 7 times x is negative 7x. This is going back to when we did expanding brackets. Now I have negative 7 times 3. A negative times a positive is a negative. 7 times 3 is 21. Oh, awesome. That is what I started with. So I'd really highly recommend, especially if you're not sure, some of these questions with plus and negative, positive and negative signs can be tricky. Go back and expand the brackets. Do the opposite. Expand the brackets and check that you get the same answer. It is really important though that your final answer is really clear, because this is not the correct answer. This isn't factorized. So if you're going to do that, then do it off to the side, or else make your answer really, really obvious. And that's it. That is how you can factorize expressions even when one or two of the terms has a negative sign. Good luck, everyone.